I want to thank the Villanova University Peace and Justice Center for recognizing my, small, humble attempt to try to give people who need and deserve an opportunity, just that opportunity to be able to have a safe place to live, be able to be out of the cold, warm, have food, have transportation, and just the ability to try to lift themselves up into the mainstream of society, taking on all those barriers that stand in their way. I want to say thank you. It's just 20 years ago, I'd have never thought I'd have been here. Never, ever, ever, ever would I have thought I'd have been here. I'm gonna go back and tell you a little bit about myself and my journey here, my journey to becoming Miss Burton. And it starts, I think it starts back when my mom and dad met, married, and ran from the South, coming to California, the land of milk and honey, searching for a safe place out of the Jim Crow lynching, hangings, and KKK of the South, and landed in a housing project in East LA called Aliso Village, and that's where I was born. I don't think they understood what that actual housing project represented and what they had left from and came to. But in that housing project, so many things happened that shouldn't have happened. And shortly after, when I was about 5 or 6, the country started deindustrialization, and my father's job left, and I think his self-esteem left, and just so much went on. One of my earliest childhood memories is riding in the back of the car as my mother took my auntie to Camarillo State Hospital to pick up her boyfriend. My auntie had this crazy boyfriend named Curly, and I knew when we reached the big building that he was going to walk out, and while he was there on his leave for that period of time we were picking him up for, he was going to do things to me that I couldn't describe, I couldn't verbalize, but I knew was wrong. And when it was discovered what he was doing, my auntie really told me I was a nasty, dirty little girl, and I should be ashamed of myself, and on it went. And she swore me to secrecy, or she threatened me to secrecy, and I was never, ever able to talk about that until I was 46 years old. And it was just a series of events that went on until my 5-year-old son was accidentally killed, playing in the street, accidentally killed, and it just happened to be an LAPD detective that killed him. And at that point, I could no longer take any more trauma, violence, grief. I was over the top, and I fell into alcoholism and addiction, and the addiction part of it sent me to prison. And for the next 16 years, I would be caught in a revolving door of incarceration, throwing myself on the mercy of the court, asking the judge for help, talking with the public defender, and never ever finding any compassion for me, any treatment for me. I was always remanded to prison. And yes, I had a serious addiction problem at that time, and it drove me to do many things. I was trying to escape the pain, the pain and the loss and the grief and the trauma and all the stuff that it came before the death of my son and with the death of my son. And there should have been something different for me, but there wasn't nothing different for me. There wasn't anything different for me and hundreds of thousands of other women who occupy our prison systems, our prison system cells today. There could been and there should have been, there should be something different. But I was always remanded to custody. October 4th of 1997, I found a place in Santa Monica, California, affluent community just outside of my community, right up the 10 freeway, a matter of fact. And I went into that place, and there I found all the services and all the support that I needed to become wholer, healthier, to begin to heal, address the demons of the past, the grief, the loss, learn forgiveness, not only of others, but of myself. And I joined the 12-step program, and I'm 20 years sober this month. And, you know, but there in that community, I also found that people didn't go to prison for what we went to prison for over in South LA. In Santa Monica, they were remanded to treatment. They got court cards. They got community service. And I thought, what is this? What? And I began to understand the role of economics, race, and culture in our country during that time. And I got to see a broader view of what could be done in lieu of incarceration. And I couldn't understand why I didn't get a court card or sent to therapy or community service. But nonetheless, you know, I could take what I found in Santa Monica and try to replicate it in South LA, a community that was just barren for a safe place for women to come to. So I worked a little job for about a year, and then I bought a little house, and that's where we began to take. I began to meet my friends coming off the bus downtown at the bus station and offer them a safe place and a safe environment. And I just thought if I helped a handful of women, everything would be okay. You know, I didn't quite sign up for the bigger picture. But, you know, one thing led to another, and it just grew, and my awareness grew, my commitment grew, my relationships grew, and the organization grew. So I got the little house, and I would sleep in the dining room, and I put bunk beds up, and I would go downtown, because everybody comes, in LA County, everybody comes downtown Skid Row and gets off the Greyhound bus, and from there, they try to make a life. You walk off the bus with a manila envelope with your W number on it, and everyone knows that you're from prison. We do it all day long, and all of the hustlers and the drug dealers, and you're just like this sitting duck. They you know, try to kind of scavenge up on you. And I would meet my friends there, and I'd offer them. Some people came, some people didn't. But in about 6 months, there was this robust community of women helping each other recover. You know, there was a point that I realized I couldn't take back the years I had spent traveling in and out of the criminal justice system, but I could help another woman not go back. there was a point when I realized I had lost my son and there was no getting him back, but I could help another woman to get her son back or her daughter back. And that's what I set my eyes on to do, set my course to do. So one house grew into another house, and we connected with UCLA Critical Race Studies Department, and we created a legal department at A New Way of Life to give post-conviction relief to the community. We, up in the hills of San Francisco, the Center for Third World Development, we created the phrase "ban the box," and it took off across the country, and co-founded All of Us or None. Later, about 5 years ago, we created the formerly incarcerated and convicted people's movement. But what I see in the homes, that's the heart. That's my heart right there. The homes, the women coming there, the children living there, the little everyday miracles like Miss Burton. One woman said to me as I was getting ready to leave to come here, she said, "Miss Burton, I got a job. LA Kitchen is hiring me. I start work tomorrow." Well, I had got a call on her the night before saying she hadn't made it home. And I just responded, "That's really great that you have a job." I said, "But, last night, whatever occurred could have wiped that opportunity away if you were just out messing it off." I said, "I don't want no explanation. I don't want no excuse. I don't want you to have to lie to me. So just understand that you have to stay your course, and you can't, get off course because it could stop you from having an opportunity like you got this morning." So, but that's the heartbeat. That's what I love to do. There's a prologue. In the prologue of the book, Becoming Miss Burton, there's a chapter I want to read about this one young lady who is a resident at the house, or was a resident at the house, came back to the house for the second time. And then I'll open it up for any questions that you might have. Oh, and this morning, this morning I got to go into Riverside Prison and sit in a circle with about 25 women who were incarcerated there. And I was able to give them a copy of the book and do a book signing in the prison. And I think that this book will serve so well for women who are incarcerated, to motivate them, to have them think about what their lives can be, should be, and how hard you have to work to get your life back. You have to really take your life back in the direction of it. So that was just such a delight and such a pleasure. So, in the prologue of the book, it talks about Ingrid. And Ingrid's life had changed in a single day outside a Dollar General store. Having scrounged up the money to buy Pampers and baby formula, she took her screaming toddler with her and made a bottle in the checkout line, but left the sleeping baby in the car. The windows rolled up for air. Not more than 10 minutes later, when she returned to her car, the police were there. She was arrested for child endangerment, though the baby was unharmed. The police impounded the diapers and the baby formula in the car, despite Ingrid's pleas that the children were hungry and needed changing. Because of her history, she was guilty before ever standing trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and lost custody of all three of her daughters. I was silent while she blamed everything on herself, how she'd been frazzled and sleep deprived, and looking back, perhaps had postpartum depression. Okay, I thought. But had Ingrid been a person of means? Had she been in a different neighborhood? Had she not been black? Would she have been sentenced to 3 years in prison? Or would she have been given help, sent to parenting classes and therapy? Resources that existed for some people, but not for others. Did I even have to ask the question? Ingrid's stories could have and should have been different. Same with my own story, and the stories most of the thousand women and their children who have come through the doors of a new way of life, seeking safety, productivity, meaning, and fulfillment. So I keep asking the questions. Why are Black Americans incarcerated at 6 times the rates of whites? Why are prison sentences for African Americans disproportionately higher? Once released, why do people face a lifetime of discriminatory policies and practices that smother any chance of a better life? Nearly 20 years ago, before I fully recognized there was a big picture, I had set out to offer another type of refuge and support that I wish I'd had, a house of women helping women. I came at it with only a GED earned in prison, without mentors, without funding. All I had was life experience. All I knew was there had to be a better way. Now, every year in South LA, around 100 newly released women and their children call a new way of life home. In a state where there is more than half of all people with felony convictions will return to prison, our program has a mere 4% recidivism rate. We assist women in helping completing their education, finding jobs. We help them regain custody of their children. We provide 12-step programs, counseling, and peer support groups, all for less than a third of the cost of incarceration. Our annual cost per woman at A New Way of Life is $16,000, compared to the annual cost of $60,000 to incarcerate a woman. So it was $60,000 when I wrote the book, but new information came out, and now it's $75,000, so we even go up some more. But something bigger than I could have ever imagined happened. As we women began telling our stories and talking about what was going on around us, I found my voice. I could no longer shake my head and helplessly ask the same question over and over again. It was time to change the answers. To do that meant taking on many institutional barriers and laws, policies and attitudes that created mass incarceration and that continue to punish people long after they had served their time. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery other than in prisons, but it was a lie that you got your life back, that you regained your freedom once you left the prison gates. Upon release and for the rest of your life, you were faced with a massive wall of no. The American Bar Association documented 45,000 legal sanctions and restrictions imposed upon people with criminal records, a near impenetrable barrier denying access to employment, student loans, housing, public assistance, custody of your children, and the right to vote. In many places, the formerly incarcerated are even blocked from visiting a loved one in prison. The minute I picked up a supposedly free Ingrid, these collateral consequences stared her square in her face. But for us, the highest priority was to get her kids back. But before she could even attempt to regain custody of her daughters, we had to get her set up in a permanent housing. But she had no money to cover rent, so we first had to find her employment. Of course, only a limited number of jobs existed for someone with a conviction, especially a child endangerment conviction. So are you starting to get the picture? By design, Ingrid's hopes and dreams were all but snuffed out, and her child's lives thrown into permanent disarray. That day, she made a faulty decision outside a dollar store. This isn't a problem that's going to go away, all on its own. The United States has the largest prison population in the world, and most of these prisoners will one day be released. I realized that formerly incarcerated people had no voice, no organized voice, and no one seemed willing to speak for us. As I built a new way of life, it sometimes felt as though a new underground railroad was taking shape. We, the people of the community, weren't going to let each other fall. We would rescue each other and deliver people to a lasting freedom. We would do all we could so that women like Ingrid could get their lives back and make better lives for their children. Through a network I'd cultivated over the past 2 decades, we began chipping away at what seemed like once nearly impossible. We found Ingrid a job doing an intake at a women's homeless shelter, working closely with Department of Children and Family Services, and with approval of her residence at a new way of life, Ingrid was approved to have her children on the weekend while she pursued the longer process of regaining full custody. She was putting money into a savings account and working with the housing agencies to find a permanent residence. Miss Burton, she said, the sparkle having returned to her eyes, I'm moving my life along. So, that's it. So I want to report to you that Ingrid has gotten her own apartment. She's gotten back custody of all 3 of her children. And while she was in custody, her 14-year-old daughter, who was in placement, conceived a child. There was a whole bunch of court stuff and stuff around that. And now she's a grandma. So she has all of her daughters and a granddaughter. And she is the civic participation coordinator at A New Way of Life. When we're running electoral campaigns, she runs a staff of up to about 20 people. And she manages, and she does it well. And I think it goes to speak to if there's more opportunity, people will rise to it. And she had a choice to make one day. She had the choice of taking a government subsidized apartment or getting apartment all on her own. And she came to me, and, I just gave her my opinion, God bless the child that has his own. I don't want the government coming in telling me to fix this or that or whatever, what have you, so you can make the decision. And she decided to let the government subsidized apartment go and be on her own. And she's got a nice new car and her children in school, and she's doing really, really well. But it just goes to say what can happen when you have certain supports with the different trajectory that can change. So I don't know if there's questions that folks have. So that had a really happy ending, right? Yeah.
So the floor is open to questions.
Yes.
Are there certain rules around parole? I think you sort of hinted at them that potentially would have been violated by you having been in prison and the women that you were working with? And maybe, I don't know, I thought that certain contact with people who had formerly been in prison.
Yeah.
So was there any potential for there to be a problem?
I guess there would be a potential for a problem, but the bigger problem is that people didn't have support. So I challenged the parole officer to, I actually invited my parole officer to the house, but I challenged the parole department to try to stop what I was doing. I tried to go to nursing school, and the nursing school told me I could never, ever be a nurse. You know, I was doing elderly care, not health care, but elderly care, and I felt like if I was more skilled, I'd be able to care for them better. And I tried to go to nursing school, and they told me no. And that just crushed me. That just broke my heart. Why would you stop someone from trying to be better, to learn, to help their community and take care of people? And then that's when I said, well, I know what I can do. You know, I can help other women like me. This is just too much. And I got mad. And so, you know, don't make a woman mad, right? But yeah, there are certain rules that they say that. But where do you go? When all these walls of no are there and you can't get into mainstream things, what do? You create a community. And that's what we did as a new way of life. But there are rules. They don't make sense.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your really powerful and inspiring story. I wonder if you might say a bit about how, if religion plays a role or different sorts of roles, either helpful or unhelpful in the stories of the women who you're working with.
Yeah. So I'll go to the personal. So as I was going through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, there was a place where my sponsor told me to create the attributes that I would want a God of my own understanding to have. And with that, I began to build a great trust with the God of the universe and the God, particular religions. I've tried to go to different churches and different religious groups, and it seems too rigid for me. For me to follow the different doctrines. So, but the women go to different churches of their own choosing, from Muslim to AME to Baptist. They go wherever they want to practice Catholic. So, but I feel a great connection with with God. A huge connection with God, because I don't know, just me, I couldn't have did this. I know that there's other works and hands in there, whatever it is, however it is, yes. Yes.
How much are men a problem in the lives of the women that you are helping and who went to prison? And are they in any way part of the solution down the road at all?
So some of the women have boyfriends and partners. I don't know that there's so much that the men are a current problem. Maybe they've had a history of problems with men, but I think when you shift and get into a more healthier, stable environment, you're able to make better choices, and you're not having to be forced to make a choice that you wouldn't make if you had everything you needed to live. So I don't see a lot of, we have growing pains with men in relationships and stuff like that, but there's not a big problem with men in the lives of the women that are at a new way of life. Right there, yes.
I wonder if you have any suggestions for us as community members to which these women are rejoining, and how we could help to shift the larger culture of support, or get more involved individually, either through your program or maybe more locally.
Yeah. So there's always, I think there are a couple of teaching programs that you have connected to the university that go inside and make and help people to learn either GED or reading or English, whatever the classes are. So that's one way. I think there's some other programs that I heard about around socks, around socks for people. But there's always things that you can do. What I think is difficult for people sometimes is to stay the course, to actually watch it blossom into a full-blown effort and not be discouraged along the way. What I just want to say, follow your dreams. If you are in a helping career, don't be discouraged. Follow your path, follow your dreams, follow your hopes and goals and ambitions to make the world a better place. Right there? Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit more about that moment when you were a part of that recovery program, and like that moment when you truly understood that you needed and you were able to make that transition from old you to new you? I think that like a lot of people don't. It takes a lot. What I've come to realize is a lot of people tend to make that transition later on in life, and the goal for a lot of us here is to help people as they get older to understand this, that they understand now, so they don't have to. They have a longer life to make the changes that they want to be. And unfortunately, a lot of like teenagers don't make that transition earlier on in life. So can you just touch a little bit more about that transition for you, and when you truly understood, I don't want to be this old person anymore.
Yeah.
This is who I want to be.
Yeah. So I was able to sort of make an inventory of my life and where I was, and with that inventory, I recognized that I went nowhere, and I was on a road to continue to go nowhere, and that allowed me to seek help. I think each person has to get to the end of their road wherever that is, but having a resource that actually supports you to do that, I think is the key, most important thing, whether you're young or whenever that time comes. The time can come, but you don't have the resource. So having that resource to allow the person to be able to escape to a different route, I think is one of the key things that allows that to happen whenever it takes place. So where would a young person go? What's there to offer them, to support them, to rebuild their lives? I think that's the key thing. One of the components. Very important one. That answer you? Okay. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about the work you do?
That woman that told me she got a job. Watching her, she came into the home and she seemed like she was chronically ill. And I pushed her to get into this training school. And she went to the training school, and all her illness disappeared for 2 months, for 10 weeks while she was training. And then she was out of training about 2 weeks, and all her illnesses started coming back. And the day before she told me she got a job, I was talking to her about the pattern, what I think I recognized, and for her to take a look at it and see if she, so it's the personal, healing, and the women making these, what are really incremental, but they can be long-lasting ways for them to move upward in their lives. So that's the favorite part of the work, the women and their children, for me. You had a hand over here? Yes.
Yeah, how long have you found that it normally takes women mothers to get their children back after they've been released? And can you speak a little bit more about the complexities and what they need to do in order to get their children back together? So that would be the number one priority, but they would need to have steps taken before that's even possible.
It's almost impossible for a woman to do it alone without a support network and stability. So there's about maybe six different classes and certificates that a judge asks for, from individual therapy to 12-step meetings to domestic violence counseling, parenting, sometime DUI classes, a lot of different things, and a lot of them cost. A lot of them, you know, the DUI classes cost. The therapy classes cost. We brought a therapist on staff at A New Way of Life that the women have access to weekly therapy. But it's like a full-time job to meet all of those different requirements. And then once you meet all the requirements, you're still not guaranteed to get your child back. You have to have a place to take the child. So we have homes there that they can bring their children to. And then that's only up to age about 12 or 13. So it's really difficult for people to reunite for women to reunite with their children. What we've done is, and it's just a small effort for a huge problem, is that we do leadership training every year at A New Way of Life. This year, it's been launched around child reunification. I brought a family attorney on staff to work with a group of women, the Women Organizing for Justice and Opportunity Leadership Cohort, to actually get into the nuts and bolts of the legal system of child reunification, child custody, to see what we can kind of open up there. But it's a big job, and just, you know, Ingrid's a good parent. You know, she ran into the store frazzled that day and ran in to get diapers, but she's a good parent. I watch her with her children. I watch her play with her children. And for them to have put her in prison for 3 years and throw her family apart all over the county, pay for her imprisonment, pay for the child to be in foster care, and then her young daughter get abused and passed around the foster home, and she come home and that daughter's pregnant. I mean, it was just a big catastrophe. But I met personally with her social worker and her social worker supervisor, and walked her through every piece of her reunification process, because she needed that in order to get the kids back. And then I went and emptied out one of our bedrooms and put bunk beds, 2 sets of bunk beds in that bedroom, so the social worker could come and say, yeah, the children have a place to live. And that was the next step to reunification, and then it was getting them into their own place. But it's a long process. That process took about 8 months. And we weren't missing a dot. We were dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's, and it took about 8 months. Yes.
Is there a role or a benefit to short-term volunteers such as college students engaging with women who are reentering in transition?
Yeah, so we have social work, sometimes social work students that engage with our residents for a semester. And what we're able to do is assign one woman to one student with our case manager, with our social worker, and that person is able to help that woman navigate different systems. And in that, that the resident gets the support she needs, and the intern gets the understanding of the huge reentry challenges that people have. And then she gets her credits for school too. Yes.
I don't know if you have any opinions on this, but the California forest fires are being
Girl, I got so many opinions.
Yeah.
You gotta read the book.
But yeah, I was talking to my friend about it, and I was like, 30% of the firefighters are imprisoned women, and and my friend was like, oh, well, they volunteer and they get paid, so yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts?
So they pay firefighters on the front line of California fires who are prisoners $1 per hour. You know, and while I was in prison, one of the trips to prison, I was assigned to fire camp. And I told them I wanted to go to cosmetology school. And the classification officer told me it was a privilege to go to fire camp. And I was like, I don't know what moon you're on, but I'm not a firefighter. You know, that's not, you know, but I was forced to go into fire camp training, and then from fire camp training, I would go to the fire camps and then to the front lines of the fires. So I trained for 3 months and never passed the training. I wasn't going to fight fires. I mean, so I'm in there and I'm thinking, okay, if I don't pass the physical, I won't go to fire camp. So I kept training and training until I got really fit. But I would not pass the physical, and then eventually they classified me out of fire camp. But Ingrid was in fire camp. And see, if you don't go fight the fire, they add a day onto your sentence for every day that you don't go. So, you know, I mean, it's like, really? So, the 13th Amendment, you're a slave when you're incarcerated, and you do whatever they tell you to do. But I think that, you know, you're going to have me trained as a firefighter. You're going to have me on the front line of California's fires, but I can't come back to my community and even be an intern at a fire department. You know, I can't even, you know, shadow a fireman. You know, I can't have anything to do. I think they can get forestry fire, but be hired by the Department of Forestry, but I can't come back into my community and be a firefighter. After all that good experience I have on the front line of California fires for $1 an hour. And people die out there. Prisoners die out there. There was a few articles earlier this year of people in custody dying on the fire lines.
Can you talk a little bit about, so you touched on that your program has a therapist available to the women that are coming out, but what is the mental health support like within the prison systems, and then how important is that for them coming out?
Yeah, I think that it varies from prison to prison, but I think, well, I know that the conditions that people are held in cause you to develop mental health symptoms from not wanting people close to you or around you, out of fear, not wanting to be in crowds, you know, just all types of things that isolation and all of that, it causes mental health diagnoses, I believe. It's not a good place. Okay.
So I have like a two-part questions. So I assume like not everyone like after going through your programs, like they found a house, like they had a happy life. Not every woman like they probably like some of them like are arrested again and go to the prisons. I mean, there should be, maybe there are some like unsuccessful examples.
Yeah.
Cases. Like, have you ever like reflected on these examples and trying to see like what can you do to prevent these kind of examples happening again in the future?
So it's a real hard fight and struggle to that women like Ingrid have put in to actually overcome all the obstacles of reentry, to kind of take it by the horns and get past it. What we do is people can come back again. It's not like a one-time shot if people aren't successful. Everybody's not going to be successful, but that don't mean they don't need to continue to get support. I mean, have any of y'all ever funked a class? Yeah? Did you take it again? Yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah. We'll get another shot at it. You flunked one too? No, I'm messing with the doctor over here. Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question, if there's no more questions.
Okay.
There one, maybe I have to ask one. How do we change the prison system to begin with so that all these women of color aren't incarcerated to begin with in extreme sentences?
So I think we are growing up a new type of awareness in our country amongst you young folks who are taking these criminal justice classes and different theology and English and philosophy, and I think you guys are going to come along and kind of clean that stuff out and create a real shift in what we do and how we do with people. I think it's not going to happen in my generation. They like stuck there. They're not learning any new ways or open to it, but I'm hopeful that you all will be the ones that kind of come through and use your smart, your creativity, your ingenuity, your compassion, your morality, that will not allow people to be tortured inside of our prison systems, will make equal opportunity for other people to have access to, things, higher education, childcare, jobs, whatever it is. So I'm betting on y'all. My hope is with you that you don't let the systems operate and draw that morality out of you that you bring to the table, that it is the stronger force that we're working with, the principle and the understanding of dignity and respect for people, and the hope of pulling the best and the good out of people. Yeah? You gonna do it? Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.